are these people?
So, first story I wanted to get to is Dissent in Bloom, as I mentioned, the newest subscriber to Indie Media Today. Again, friend of mine, thank you, really appreciate that. She wrote an article this week, and she just kind of threw it out there on, I don't know, it was a Friday morning, and I had to message her and be like, God damn you, like, how do you do this? Like, she's making videos, she's writing a whole bunch of articles, she's working, she's momming, she's doing all, and then she puts something like this together. The government can now lock you up for being poor, sick, or addicted. They're not fixing homelessness. They're disappearing the people who remind them it exists. Right? And this is a theme that we've been talking about for a long time. We talked about criminalizing homelessness. I had a conversation with Keith McHenry, right? About last year, you know, that's one of the conversations I'm most proud of, co-founder of Food Not Bombs, about the homelessness problem, specifically in California, and how he's seen it explode everywhere basically since COVID started. So this is, again, a worrisome thing because I feel like they are pricing a lot of people out of being able to even afford a home. There's a lot more people that are living out of their cars from what I've been hearing. And now they're doing this, which is the Trump thing that he signed to get them off the streets, whatever that means, right? Right? I mean, so she says, as the month stumbles toward its end, so does the illusion of rights in a nation that swore it was free. On July 24th, Trump put a permanent marker to paper and signed an executive order that gave the federal government permission to vanish the people we already try not to see. The people on the sidewalk, the people muttering to themselves in the library bathroom, the ones holding cardboard signs outside of Starbucks, the people that this country failed long before it decided to criminalize their suffering. Like his previous executive orders, this one also came versed to convince you that he's doing this for you. It called the unhoused a threat, not because of what they've done, but because of who they are. People without shelter, people with addictions, people with mental health diagnoses, people who scare the rich just by existing. This isn't about services. It isn't about care. It's about removal. It's about creating a country where people don't have to look at poverty so they can pretend it doesn't exist. And if they do see it, they'll only see it from the outside of a cop car window or a closed psychiatric ward. This is not reform. It's authoritarianism 101. This executive order is a shiny, bureaucratic way of saying, we're about to lock people up en masse under the illusion of help. And what she ends up doing is bringing a historical perspective here. She says, let's talk about what this order really says. They'll tell you it's to help people. But once you read the order, you realize it's not that. It's not that at all. It reads like a plan for care, but acts like a roadmap for disappearance. Behind the promises of treatment and safety, it's a policy built to detain, punish, and erase. Buried in the order, of course, is a term with a long and bitter history, civil commitment. It sounds neutral, almost clinical. But what it really means is that the government can lock someone away in an institution without a crime, without a trial, and without their consent. If a person is homeless, if they have a mental health condition, if someone decides they can't care for themselves, that's all it takes. No jury, no defense, just a signature and a cell. The language used is vague enough to stretch around almost anyone. A risk to themselves or others. We've heard that term used before. Unable to care for themselves. Those phrases have been used before. They've been used to justify locking up dissidents, to disappear people that are inconvenient, and to make the suffering vanish without dealing with what caused it in the first place. Their language is flexible by design, soft enough to sound compassionate, ambiguous enough to be weaponized. And the order doesn't stop there. It doesn't offer housing. It doesn't offer services. What it does offer is more arrests, more crackdowns on loitering, squatting, sitting still for too long in a public place. In the name of safety, it makes existing without money a punishable act. It criminalizes the poor, not the poverty. And while it does all this, it reaches for something even more dangerous. It allows the government access to people's health information. The programs that still offer help will now be expected to collect data. And guess who gets that data? It explicitly names mental health records, addiction histories, medical diagnoses. And once collected, that information can be shared with police, federal agents, prosecutors, whoever needs to file to justify taking someone off the street. But it doesn't stop at a clipboard or a local case file. That data won't just sit in a drawer somewhere. Under previous executive orders this year, agencies were told to share what they gather, not just across departments, but across entire systems. What starts in a HUD program could end up in a federal crime database. What you say to a social worker could quietly travel through the software through software built for war. Because behind the scenes, there's something else at play. Like Reeve said, Palantir, the tech company that built Gotham, and Foundry, which are the two operating systems that our intelligence and law enforcement runs on, has spent years designing platforms to link and analyze enormous amounts of information from completely different sources. I mean, we're talking about police records, medical records, surveillance footage, social media posts, case notes, purchase histories, and even travel logs. All of it mapped and stitched together by machine learning. It was built for battlefield intelligence.
You remember the thing in what's the Batman movie where like Morgan Freeman, he makes Morgan Freeman look at all the
the Dark Knight. No, it's even more than that. It's even more than that, because you might be able to see that there's a figure in there, but you don't know who it is and their medical history and access to everything about them. You just know that there's 4 figures in the building. This is even more depth because it would literally be able to use cameras in the room to be able to tell you who's in there, their heat signature, their heart rhythm, to literally identify every single person on Earth and be able to target them, because everybody has flaws and everybody has things that they would be embarrassed by and could be used against them. To continue, with Trump's directive to unify and share data between agencies, that's what's being created. What's being created is a nationwide nervous system, a real-time feed of the country's most vulnerable people, constantly updated and monitored. Not just a database, a weaponized brain. Imagine if the Soviet Union had a supercomputer that could flag you for being mentally ill, or for being unhoused, for visiting the wrong clinic too many times. I think they actually dealt with their homelessness problem a lot better than we did. And a lot of that, but I could be wrong. Imagine if it could suggest that you be committed or detained or quietly removed. Imagine if Orwell's telescreens didn't just watch you, but predicted what you'd do next. And that's what Palantir is doing. That's not science fiction anymore. It's public policy in America 2025. It's pre-crime, predictive programming, and predictive crime. Who would run these facilities? Let's guess.
Talked a bunch about that too.
She sure has. All right. And check that out at unlimitedhangout.com. But as Dissent in Bloom asks, who would run these facilities? Well, the executive order is written as intentionally ambiguous regarding how these facilities would operate. It lists that these detainees would be sent to appropriate facilities and gives examples such as treatment centers and housing and support networks, without distinctly specifying the who, what, when, or where. And that's not on accident. It does, however, specify that these individuals would be sent to private housing and support networks. Private. contractors, not government employees,
Yep.
not subject to public
For
information laws, not subject to FOIA requests. This leaves these facilities able to operate in the shadows, all while running off with your tax dollars. Could it possibly be Geo Group and CoreCivic? The same beast behind 99% of the immigration processing centers in the U.S.? This is their domain. See, not only do these companies make money from private prisons and immigration processing centers, they also own and operate places that fit into this executive order just a little too perfectly. And they've been expanding their private detention network over the last several months. In 2025, they brought in some of their largest federal contracts to date under the Trump administration. Geo Group owns residential reentry centers and mental health treatment centers under the By Incorporated subsidiary. CoreCivic already owns and operates reentry programs and secure psychiatry units, right? And openly advertises its ability to partner with governments for rehabilitation and behavioral health management. Now, I'd like to remind you that this very same Trump administration, Geo Group and CoreCivic are actively being lobbied for and funded in 2024, okay? They spent a ton of money. Geo Group alone spent between $2 and $3 million supporting Trump and Republicans. So, who could have guessed that private prisons would benefit the most from an authoritarian government? Who could have possibly seen this coming? Tongue firmly planted in cheek. Just remember that this isn't about compassion. It's about making cities safer. It's about control. It's about cleaning up the sidewalks without ever looking anyone in the eye. It's about making the margins disappear so the rest of the country doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. This isn't policy. It's a quiet purge, a legal blueprint to turn human suffering into a public nuisance and sweep it away. Now, she also brings a story from the Soviet Union, which I'm going to skip through because she also talks about Nazi Germany. And not only did she do a piece on this, but she also did a TikTok. And I thought I had the TikTok here, and now I lost it. So let me see if I can't find it real quick. Damn it. I'm sorry, everyone. We'll do it live, right? Thank you for the do it live thing.
Speakers. Tic-tac-toe.
Winner. There we go. I was waiting for that. Where is it? AKTION. She sent me something about that yesterday. Where is it? We're getting close, folks. I'm just scrolling. Scrolling.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
A lot of conversation, folks. Sorry.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
That's right. All right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it. Damn it. Oh, sorry. All right. Nope. So let's just go back and read it. Real quick. Nazi Germany did this before with a program called Action T4. AKTION. Long before the world understood the full scale of Nazi brutality, the regime tested its power on those least able to resist, not in the camps, not with soldiers, but quietly through hospitals and clinics. It started with a program called Action T4. In 1939, the Nazi government announced that it would begin transferring people with severe disabilities to receive what they called specialized medical care. Does this sound familiar? The public was told this was about mercy. They said the nation could no longer afford to care for people with incurable illnesses. The language was clean, technical, and reassuring. But what it masked was a systematic program to murder tens of thousands of people deemed unworthy of life. The first to die were children with developmental delays. Then came adults with schizophrenia, epilepsy, or physical impairments. Elderly people with dementia. Patients with mental illness. Anyone who couldn't work was seen as a burden on the state. The government labeled them useless eaters and sent them to die in gas chambers disguised as showers or through forced starvation, overdoses, and neglect. There's a boys with Down syndrome held near Dachau. Doctors became gatekeepers for the regime. Psychiatrists signed off on extermination orders. Families were often told that their loved ones had died of pneumonia and were mailed urns filled with ashes that likely belonged to someone else entirely. There were no trials or right to defend yourself. There were just quiet disappearances with bureaucratic paperwork and forged death certificates. Action T4 was not a rogue experiment. It was a government program with offices, payrolls, and logistics teams. It involved over 100 institutions across Germany and Austria. It was the first time the Nazis used gas chambers. It was also the test case for public reaction. When the backlash was limited, the regime knew it could go further. After 1941, the program finally ended. Officially, but the killing didn't stop. The infrastructure and personnel that made Action T4 possible were later redirected to the extermination camps. The logic that justified those early murders, those that some lives were too costly, too damaged, too inconvenient, would go on to shape the Holocaust itself. Okay? She says, today when governments talk about shifting people with mental illness or addiction into institutions for their own good, we have to ask what that really means. When vague standards like a danger to themselves or others become the threshold for detention, we need to understand where that path can lead. And when treatment becomes compulsory and privacy becomes optional, we're not building systems of care, we're building systems of control. The digital control grid, as Catherine Austin Fitts very famously refers to it as. And in a country already building camps like Alligator Auschwitz, it isn't a red flag, it's a 3-alarm fucking fire. So I'm going to duplicate this tab and then I'm going to go to this video because I just got the link for it so we can watch the TikTok. Let's unmute.
Disability. And as a result, his parents sent a letter to the government asking for relief. And this made its way all the way to the head of the government at the time, whose name I cannot say. Now, what did he do? He sent his personal physician to go and examine this baby, who actually gave it a lethal injection of medication, causing it to unfortunately pass away. And the parents were told it was, quote unquote, for the best. And from there, that set a precedent. That's what started Action 4. It wasn't long after that hospitals were mandated to report children with physical and mental disabilities to the government at birth, and these children were taken from their families and sent to specialized institutions where they would be provided with better care. They didn't really have a say in the matter. Now, these children were killed en masse in gas chambers, and this actually preluded the camps. And then the following year, this expanded to adults, and this didn't just include physical and mental disabilities, this included mental health issues as well. So people in asylums, people with schizophrenia, epilepsy, with any kind of mental health issues would be loaded up onto these gray buses where they would be taken from these asylums to these killing centers. There were 6 mandated killing centers. They looked like hospitals, but then they would take them into showers where they would be killed. It took about 20 minutes at a time, and then they would be burned on site in on-site ovens. While they were actively burning, these staff members would laugh and joke and play accordion and party and have fun, like it was just another Tuesday. Now, of course, after a while, families were like, hey, what the hell? Why are all of these people, all of our families dying from the exact same thing, like pneumonia in July? Like, this isn't adding up. So after a while, because they were in war and they didn't want inner turmoil, they stopped. But really, they just found other ways to continue the killing until after the war.
Jesus. Okay. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so to continue, her final thought said that Action T4 did not begin with mass murder. It began with paperwork, vague diagnoses, and public indifference. What many forget is that the Nazis modeled much of their ideology on American eugenics policy, borrowing language and laws from U.S. sterilization programs that targeted the poor, disabled, and mentally ill. The Supreme Court once called these sterilizations constitutional, declaring that 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Oh my God. That same cold logic survives today in the architecture of our immigration system, where migrants are detained without charges, where ICE raids tear families apart, and where asylum seekers are sent to prisons for daring to flee violence. The same immigration system that forcibly sterilized immigrants during Trump's first administration. It lives in Trump's latest executive order, okay, which allows people to be institutionalized without trial, criminalizes poverty, and turns health records into tools of surveillance. This is not some new idea. It's an old and familiar playbook, dressed in modern language and powered by modern technology. If the Nazis had Palantir, they would have used it. If the Soviets had predictive algorithms, they would have fed them dissenters, probably. I mean, most authoritarian governments do. What we're building now is a system that doesn't need to ask why someone is poor or sick. It only needs to decide that they should not be seen. And once that decision is made, there are no limits to what the state can justify. That's fucking frightening. All right. And support independent media. Support our friend Dissent in Bloom. She supports INN. And here you go. One of the first things Hitler did was make unemployment illegal. Everything going on in the U.S. smells like the fetid, inhuman stench of fascism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And along that line, I brought from Jen Budd, who again is a whistleblower from Customs and Border Patrol. She says, look for private prison corps, Geo Group, and others to get in the game of housing the homeless and institutionalizing those with mental illness. And I just pointed out that criminalizing homelessness and enslaving them in a prison population seems to be the long-term plan. That's what Keith McHenry of Food Not Bombs has been saying for years. He feeds the homeless. They've been demonized, and more people are being squeezed and priced out of the current system. They're structuring things so that these people will have nowhere to go, and there won't be anywhere to go that they wouldn't be considered a criminal. From sleeping in their cars to tents in the woods without a permit, or on a sidewalk because they have nowhere else to sleep, or a park bench because they've made that illegal too. Billions are being thrown at a problem that only seems to be getting worse. Okay. Yeah. The economic model of the future relies on making money from holding people in custody. It's not about building anything, creating anything. Bronze Age, Industrial Age, and now human captivity age. So by all means, check out my most recent one-on-one with that author, Dissent in Bloom. I think we're planning on doing a one-on-one, an AMA, where that'll be a live stream Tuesday night, where around starting at 10 Eastern, and everyone here in the audience can ask her questions. That is right now, I believe, in the plans. Hashtag Food Not Bombs. Yeah. Love our friend Keith McHenry. Much love to Keith. So, yeah, that's not great. Hope everybody's got the ability to figure out how to support themselves. I mean, they're coming for anyone that can't. And we may have to get creative and build a safety net in some way, shape, or form to be able to help those who are unable to help themselves. Right? Here, Lone Star Viz over on Rumble. Round up the filthy little peasants. Get them out of sight and out of mind. Yes, that's pretty much exactly what Trump and all these fuckers are saying. Right? After reading, I determined that they should just call this Operation Street Sweeper. Not a bad name. But that's actually too on brand and draconian, because that maybe yeah. And it's just bureaucratic fuckery. Yes, Natalie Williams, thank you. If you're able to, and it means, please support the media you want to see. INN is solely user-funded, and we really rely on tips and monthly subscriptions from people just like you. Everyone who has done that is already up on that board. If you want to join them, really would appreciate if you did. The ways to do that are Cash App, $, Indie News Network, co-fi.com/Indie News Network. We got paypal.me/Indie News Network. We got IndieNewsNow.com, and we're live over at IndieNewsNow.com/live. That's where we host a live stream so that if in case we get thrown off all these platforms, you can still see us there. And then we've got the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com, where Shirley Cooper became a member this week. And at Indie Media.
A Substack newsletter near you.
Holy crap, man. We're going to talk about that in a second. I can wax on Rachel and Stephen Shitlib Colbert. Indie Media Today, by the way. We're live at Indie Media Today. Hello to everybody at Indie Media Today. Sorry I have not been checking on the chat over there for the 18 people who've checked in. Raymond Kahlberg, thank you. Good to see you. You've been hanging out every week. Lisa Tyree, hi. Hops, my cunt brother who's everywhere. Good to see you. Michael Ginsberg out down under. Harps and Ginsberg, you guys should get together and have a Foster's. I know nobody in Australia drinks Foster's. Just making a joke there. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I'll see you next week. I love you all. And have a good one, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Ciao, baby.
We are out of here.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you